because the boss tells his infiltrators, follow the storyline, and you will see consistently wherever you go, the pattern is always connection with people brings the money. Destroying relationships with people brings hunger. That's how it works. And so we've got a marvelous example of Jacob arriving in the city of Shechem. This is a little earlier than the Joseph story. This is back in chapter 33. And what it says there is Jacob arrived complete at the city of Shechem. And then in Hebrew it says, Vayichan et ha'ir. And the English translation says, and he camped by the city. There's only one problem, and that is that's not what the Hebrew says. So then why doesn't the English get it right? Because an English translation has to roughly keep pace with the Hebrew, right? If there are 8 verses on the Hebrew side of the page, then you kind of need about 8 sentences on the English. You can't have 8 Hebrew verses and 95 English verses. So what do you do when in order to explain, remember I've been telling you all along, this isn't about a storybook. It's not just a narrative. It's a marvelously brilliant system of conveying timeless truths by means of the narrative. And so the narrative very often doesn't mean what it appears to mean, and you need paragraphs sometimes to explain one word. You need pages sometimes to explain one sentence. And so what they did is, where it says, Vayichan et pnei ha'ir, they took the fact that in all the journeys of the Israelites through the desert, and I told you they only walked for about 6 days, but they camped in over 40 places. And each of the times they camped, it says, Vayachanu, and they camped. And so the singular of that would be Vayichan. So you could sort of say that Jacob camped by the city. There's only one problem, and that is that the preposition is wrong. It doesn't say by the city. It says at the city, which means that's something you do to the city. How do you camp the city? So it can't mean camp. Now wait a sec. Is there anywhere else at all? And here I'm letting you in on one of the great secrets for understanding the instruction manual, and that is take a look at where else in the instruction manual the boss used exactly the same word. Where else does it use this word Vayichan, which kind of means they camped in the plural, and it sort of could mean he camped in the singular if you use the word Vayichan, but where else does that appear? Turns out it's used in one other place. In chapter 19 of Exodus, just before the giving of the 10 Commandments, Israel is camped at the foot of Mount Sinai. And it says, and he, singular, was camped, not they. All the other places through the desert, it says they camped. They camped over here, they camped over there, they camped somewhere else. But over here at the foot of Mount Sinai, singular. Why? The great transmitters say, here in the presence of God, as they're about to possess the instruction manual, 3 million people, 600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 60, plus women, older, younger, 3 million people camped as a singular entity, one person. They were like one person, one heart, one mind, one soul. They were all unified, totally unified. So is it any wonder, you might ask, that the next thing that happens afterwards is that they are able to have enough gold to build that? Do you have any idea of how much gold is there? Now, I'm not sure that one is actually all gold. I hope it is. You should be blessed. But if it was all gold, get an idea, and that's only part of it. And there's silver. Did you ever wonder how they were able to do all that? All that wealth, because unity among people produces wealth. That's the rule. Well, wait a second, then let's go back to Jacob getting to the city. What did he do to the city? Well, it can't mean he camped by the city, but there's something he did, Vayichan, to the city, and apparently the result of that is great wealth, because the next chapter starts right away with this whole story of the rape of Dena, and all the people of that city say to one another, hey, we've got to be friendly with these people. These Israelites, these sons of Jacob, they're going to make us all wealthy. They've got the secret. Isn't that true today? Don't people still say today the Jews are good with money? It's okay, you can say that, it's not bigoted. It's okay, I won't be offended. In fact, so not offended would I be that I actually wrote a book about it. The book's called Thou Shalt Prosper. And what I did is basically that. I studied for 9 years the secrets of Jews and money. And I said, look, let's take it as a given that Jews are good with money, exactly like the people of Shechem said about Jacob and his family. Now let's find out if you've got to be circumcised to be rich. Let's find out if you've got to eat chicken soup to be rich. Do you have to eat bagels to be rich? No, it turns out you have to know the timeless truths and the permanent principles. That's all. And whoever knows them joins the covenant, is able to build the wealth. And there's a lot of them, and there's a lot to it. So I reduced it to 10 main categories, which is why I call it the 10 Commandments for making money. But that's the idea. What the men of Shechem said was exactly true. We need to welcome Jacob and his children because they've got the secret. They know they'll make us rich. Sure enough, what's the secret? Vayichan et pnei ha'ir. He did something to the city. The transmission, ancient Jewish wisdom, lays it out. It's beautiful. He taught them the secret of money. But wait a sec, what's the secret of money? The secret of money is that the greatest civilization the world has ever seen puts on its money the magic words, "In God we trust." That's the secret of money. And that's why every secular, socialistic tyranny goes poor. They can't create wealth. Take God out of the equation, you can kiss the money goodbye. When a nation abandons God, it seeks its road to poverty. It's going to happen. Jacob knew that, and he taught them the entire secret of making money, having it hold its value. You don't have to hold all your wealth in sheep and in real estate. You can hold it in money, which means it can grow, and you can invest it. You can do things with money you can't do with carrots and sheep. And Jacob made them. So this word, vayichan, take out the vayeh for grammatical reasons, and we're left with the root sound ch-en, or the word chanukah. Do you hear it? Chanukah. Okay. What is the only Jewish feast at which it's appropriate to give money as a gift? Only Hanukkah. There's even a term for it. They call it Hanukkah money. Sure. And what is the astrological sign that Abraham assigned to the month of Hanukkah? Anybody know? The rainbow. Now, in the Greeks, they didn't like the rainbow because of its religious significance having to do with Noah, and so they changed it to the fighting bow. And that became the archer. What's his name? Sagittarius. Forget it. The true sign that Abraham assigned is the rainbow. Okay. And what do you find at the end of the rainbow, according to old tradition? The pot of gold, of course, absolutely. Because gold is tied up with chan. And the original word for coin, listen to the word coin. We say Chanukah, and some people have trouble pronouncing the cha. But the origin of those first two sounds, ch and n, you have the English word coin came out of that. That's where it comes from. What's more, guess what we call a place where people do transactions that leave each party happier than they were before. It's called a store or a shop. In Hebrew, chanut. Again, that same word, chan. A place where chan happens, where wealth is created by human beings doing things for one another, and God smiles, yes, it's called a store. That's why it's so appropriate that we use the same word for customer service and worship service, right? Same word. And that's why you go to Nordstrom's and want to get a pair of shoes, somebody goes down like this on his knees in front of you. And that's fine, because God says remember the story about Abraham, and he's feeling ill after circumcision, and eventually 3 angels come and visit, And God says, hey, you go take care of them. And so Abraham leaves God in the middle of a conversation and goes, takes care of the people who he thought were guests. He didn't know they were angels. Later on, he comes back to God and he says, hey, God, I'm talking to you, master of the universe. Why was I supposed to leave you and go and take care of them? And God says, one day when you have a son, you will realize that when people do a favor for your son, you will value it more than when they do a favor for you. When you are good to my children, I prefer it to your worshiping of me. And guess what? I'm going to reward you with a great blessing called wealth when you do that. And so there are a lot of very important principles here. One of the products we have is a very powerful resource called Boost Your Income, the 3 spiritual steps to success. I don't suppose there's really anybody here who could... somebody in green in the second row there was the first hand up. Yeah. There you go. Boost your income. I want you to have these principles. I want you to have these techniques. I want you to have these spiritual strategies. They will bless you. You might say, you might ask, am I telling you that God wants you to be rich? No, I'm not telling you that. I don't know that. He never told me. It's like asking, does God want you to have fantastic sex? I don't know. He never told me that either. But I'll tell you what he did tell me. He told you also, which is that he does want you to be dedicated to your spouse, and for your spouse to be dedicated to you, and for you to follow the rules of male-female relationships and marriage as I laid out in my book. And if you do that, why would you be surprised if a good and loving God should bless you with great joy and pleasure? Why should you be surprised? Does God want you to be rich? I don't know about that. But I do know he wants you to be obsessively preoccupied with the needs of other people. And if you go ahead and take care of the needs of other people, would you be surprised that a good and loving God will bless you with wealth? So you don't pray to God for a Ferrari. You pray to God for an opportunity to take care of more of his children. Because if you take care of enough people and help them with the things they need and want in life, you know what will happen miraculously? You'll have more than you could possibly want or need. That's part of this whole setup and all these principles carefully laid out. These things are crucial and are things